design thinking, and open source. Dennis, Candor, if you're here, please give it up for Dennis.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful for just one thing. These few seconds, just one thing. And that is not falling down the stairs while I was climbing the platform. Because I am extremely nervous. This is not my first time speaking in a public event, but then it's a larger one, and I was seriously freaking out like a few moments ago. So, the beginning. Right before I speak, I always like to start with an illustration because it helps me find a connection to what I want to talk about, and so I keep everyone in one place, right? So this is more like a personal story. In 2019, it was the beginning of some of my failures and some of my major wins. Now, just as some developers, I started out with front-end web development, started learning the basics of design and all of that. And because everyone around me was kind of doing something different from just coding. Some people were building startups, some people were generating great ideas, relocating out of the States, doing amazing things. I felt I could also be in that category by trying to do something different from coding. So I thought I would be providing a very relevant solution if I bought fresh farm produce from the market and delivered it to people's homes for a small fee. Many people were doing it, yes, but there was something I failed to recognize, and that was the right audience. Idea validation, research, and valid analysis with a willing and focused team. Willing and focused being on emphasis. Well, obviously, we have been talking about open source and community for the past 2 days. And today, it has just been about community, community, community. You all obviously are part of a large community of people who are contributing to open source. There are certain reasons why you decide to contribute, and of course, there are rewards that you have gotten. But let's just stop talking about my failures for a while, and let me introduce myself. Okay, I'll come back to this. Right, my name is Dennis Candor. I'm a design thinker and a tech enthusiast. Majorly, I use design thinking and innovation to help businesses and brands create viable solutions. So I want to make something really clear here. If you've heard about design thinking before, just wave. Nice, I didn't expect to see this, because most people in my area don't really know what design thinking is. So if you know that you can actually collaborate design thinking and open source together, raise your hands. Nice. So I just want to share the good tidings of design thinking and how you can use it with open source. But first of all, for those who do not know, design thinking is a creative way of approaching business problems, a creative way of solving business problems and providing really, really creative solutions to those problems. As a design thinker, one of my very intrinsic benefits is that I always want these businesses and brands to build empathy-first products. To build empathy-first products, you need design thinking. Now, empathy is the core of design thinking, and this is because it tries to focus on the core needs of the user. Empathy, I like to define it as seeing the world through your neighbor's eyes, or walking the streets through your neighbor's shoes, feeling what they feel, thinking of what they think, and trying to provide a solution that is really valid to that problem that they are facing. Okay, so there are some similarities between open source and design thinking, and some of those similarities are transparency, free accessibility and flexibility, and sustainability. Now, I say these are similarities what the opportunities open source affords us. I say these are the benefits because code is being shared, right? So many people see what you're sharing. Many people try to contribute to it. Many people see the application you're building and the relevance of that application. It is also sustainable because some things are being moved from one stage to another. Some things are being evolved from the earliest infancy stage to a higher stage with open source. So what does design thinking promote? Like I said earlier, empathy is the core of design thinking, and I believe I have narrowed it down to like viewing the world through your neighbor's eyes, trying to see what they see, trying to feel what they feel, and creating a viable solution for that. We are at a prehistorical era where many people are just bringing out solutions from all corners, right? People are building amazing things. Now, it is very important first to understand why you are building that solution, and then build it creatively, right? So there is something I usually say to some of my students, those I organize who are front-end web developers. I ask them this question. If someone asks you to build a certain project or to build a certain web page, what is the first thing you do? So most of them usually go like, I will download a template and then I'll start building. But then I always tell them to try to build a relationship with that customer. Try to understand why they want that solution. Try to understand what they will do with it, who they think their users are, right? These questions are very relevant, and they can help you build a close relationship with your customer and then provide a viable solution. So what does design thinking and open source have in common? I have narrowed it down to 3 very important things. The first is open exchange, broad participation, and rapid prototyping. So for an open exchange, as a design thinker as well, right after empathy, my favorite session in design thinking is the brainstorming session. Now this is because in this brainstorming session, ideas are being generated. Creative ideas are being generated. People are wild with ideas. But there are some people who just say, okay, everyone is contributing to something, everyone is saying something, why don't I just bring up an idea? And then the person just says something stupid. Some people would like to refer to it as stupid. But then there are some disadvantages of saying an idea is not good or an idea is good during the brainstorming session. I always advise that you allow everyone to openly contribute, allow everyone to openly air their views. During the brainstorming session, there are no devil's advocates allowed. There is no negativity allowed in the brainstorming session. And you will often find out that the space between the best idea and the great idea is closer than you think. It is even possible that the worst idea being generated by someone can actually be the very best. So it is important that you let that person air his or her idea and then try to build on it. Now, the second similarity is broad participation. With open source and design thinking, ideas are nurtured and built with a willing team. So the common saying with open source is, with all eyes, all bugs are shallow, right? People see the code and then try to contribute to the worst ones, the ones they feel are not right, the ones they feel they can improve more. But I always encourage that instead of trying to find the bugs, always try to improve the positive ones, the ones that you feel that are good. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say in a football field, instead of giving a goal continuously, someone just decides to stand in the goalpost and then tells everyone to keep throwing the ball at him, right? They keep firing bugs, they keep showing this developer all his bugs, all his errors. Instead of doing that, why don't you try to change the narrative a little bit? Try to develop on the ones that are positive. Now, the third similarity here is rapid prototyping. Prototyping is one very, very sensitive stage in design thinking. And that is because when you find an idea, when you think of an idea, the first thing you have to do is to test it in the market first. Try to see if that idea is actually going to be usable. Try to see if it is something that your users want, if they actually resonate with it. So constant improvement begins from idea generation, rapid testing, to finding visible holes in that solution and fixing them from the beginning. So open source is everywhere, and so is design thinking. Now, even if you do not believe this, open source and design thinking have been imbibed in our hearts from the dawn of human creativity itself. You often find that there are 3 things that happen when a solution is being born. There is sharing, there's iteration, and then there's constant copying and constant development. So you often find that some apps that used to do payment transactions before, there have been 1,001 apps that have been built, still doing the same thing, but then a unique feature is added. So that is our way of life, that's our nature. You see someone who wears a short skirt, and then you feel, okay, I like this short skirt, and then you make your own shorter. They are both short skirts, but then there's something unique about yours. So that's why I say it has been imbibed in our hearts from the dawn of human creativity. Through nature collaborative and recursive methods, open source offers a model that overcomes the old capitalist practices and then breeds constant collaboration. So, yes, I mentioned this before. Open source design techniques have been partially rooted and has existed since the dawn of human creativity. The reasons that you decide to contribute to open source can differ for different people. It could be from passion to curiosity to pride, but then the rewards for open source is far greater than the reasons why people decide to contribute to open source. And these are for personal recognition, probably so that people can know you've contributed to 1 million apps on GitHub, you become the GitHub star and all of that, so people will know you, right? And then the next thing is for your own reputation and constant innovation on a certain application that is on the open source software. So let's sum it up. Like I said earlier, open source and design thinking is in our hearts. And the more we continue to use this interchangeably, the more we can actually build more viable and creative solutions. If everyone is given the opportunity to shape their own tools and to design it the way that fits the user needs, through design thinking methods, of course, then maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to create more creative solutions, more innovative solutions will be born. Now, lastly, inclusivity and accessibility are achievable with open source and design thinking. From the picture, this person's leg is not complete, right? But then she can still walk. Now, this is what open source and design thinking affords us. Someone built this to enable this other person, so he or she doesn't feel out. The person is inclusive in a community. All right, thank you so much for listening.